Since the election, it's safe to say many of us feel like we're mourning, going through the different stages of grief. I know personally that's what it feels like for me. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then hopefully soon, acceptance. But I'm not quite there yet. So I decided I really needed to understand why not just white America, but why so many people of color voted for Trump. Why would Asians, specifically Indians or Chinese people, vote for Trump in America? Why? Even Black American men, it just didn't make sense to me. African men, Latinos voting for Trump, Arabs voting for Trump. So I turned to, of all places, TikTok, because I wanted to hear from regular people in their own voices. To anyone who is Republican watching this video is not intended to condemn you for your choices. I am simply trying to understand. In this exit poll, which surveyed a little over 22,000 people, it clearly shows in red that most men voted for Trump and most women voted for Harris. However, overall, most white men and white women voted for Trump. Most black people, black men and women, voted for Harris. Most Latino men voted for Trump and most Latino women voted for Harris. Also interesting, most people with a college degree voted for Harris and most people without a college degree voted for Trump. Again, most Trump voters were white, which makes sense due to the sheer numbers when, in fact, white voters make up the bulk of the voting electorate in the United States. By the way, this is footage of my husband cutting my hair over a year ago. Please excuse all the faces. I'm really trying to understand how a man with Trump's history is going to be the future president of the United States. This is a man who, in his own words, said in the 90s, if I were to run, I'd run as a Republican. They're the dumbest group of voters in the country. They believe anything on Fox News. I could lie and they'd still eat it up. I bet my numbers would be terrific. In case you need a reminder, this is an updated list or timeline by Kathy Young as of October of 2024. She calls it 101 More Reasons Trump is Unfit to be President. Interesting read, but I'm sure most of us have lived through this, so we all know. I know that most people who voted for Trump were not necessarily bad people or racist, but mostly concerned about the economy and the U.S. borders. However, it is still hard to stomach that many people would vote for a man with his criminal history. This is a man that was indicted by the Atlanta grand jury for a scheme to reverse the state's 2020 presidential vote.
You have to be what?
Twice.
What?
Twice as good.
Twice as good as them to get half of what they have.
So as you know, Kamala Harris did not win despite her best efforts. Maybe it's because she only had 107 days for her campaign, or maybe because her messaging was off. She focused on women's reproductive rights and maybe the men felt left out. She also focused on Donald Trump being a convicted felon, and all of these issues appealed to college-educated women, but not to the masses or people in rural areas who were worried about the economy, or maybe majority of people are still not ready for a female president. Let's be honest, that might be it too. On the other hand, it appears that Trump was more effective in his messaging when it comes to his base. But let's hear from people in their own words why they voted for him.
So who do you think the most oppressed group of people in America is?
I think straight white Republican men. Everything that the media pushes and everything that politics pushes and law is pushing right now is against everything that they are.
If Trump becomes president, it's going to feel the same way it feels when you get that easy teacher in high school. And like after a year of like shitty teachers, and then you get that one easy teacher and you're like, oh, thank God, like I don't have as much work anymore. Life is easier. Like I can breathe. I can still learn, but I'm not like getting yelled at all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like Trump is the breath of fresh air that we need. We need to go back to like when groceries weren't $500 for 2 bags. And like our money actually meant something.
I like the tax cuts that he's proposed for businesses that are already paying a lot in taxes. And I think he's a real candidate that is behind hardworking Americans and blue-collar workers.
I voted for Donald Trump today, and I voted for him because the last 4 years weren't really great with the border, with inflation, with foreign policy.
I think he's going to straighten out the economy, the inflation, straighten out the border, almost everything. I don't think she's qualified. There's a lot of things about Trump I don't like the way but I like his policies.
What brought you out to vote for former President Trump here today?
The economy, more than anything.
So most of the white people who voted for him say it was because of the economy. What about the white people who didn't vote for him?
This is for my friends and family that support Trump. I wish this election was just a preference. I wish like in the past, it was like, oh yeah, you vote for the red or the blue or whatever. It's, not big change is going to happen. But unfortunately, that's not what this election is. There's clearly one side that will do harm and wants to take rights and change America into something that is completely different. It's been really hard. It's been really challenging to integrate that there are people that I love and care about and do not see what I'm talking about. They excuse all of the behavior, all of the policies. Like, whether you see it or not, like what Trump stands for is taking away rights of people. And maybe you're a white man and maybe it's not your rights. Maybe you'll be fine for a while. But all the people you love, all of your friends and coworkers, like so many of them, like people that are affected by the policies of the presidency are not white men like me. It is everybody else. And that's why you see so many like people of color going to the polls in record numbers. It's because it really is a threat to them. And women too. And regardless of what you believe to be true, because the media has lied about so many things, Project 2025 is a part of Trump. Like his lies to say he's not a part of it is not true. Him and his team are trying to enact this, a lot of the aspects of it. And in that plan, they want to lessen people's rights, specifically women and minorities first. They want to limit what you can say, turn free speech, turn the military on people that disagree. That's part of it. They want to get rid of the Board of Education. They want to get rid of schools, public schools. They want to make a state religion. They want to make Christianity the main religion in this country. And maybe you're a Christian and you think that's great, but I'm telling you it is not. It is not great to take away people's rights in that way. The melting pot that the idea of America is and was started for is why America is so great. And taking away people's rights and saying you have to worship this way, it totally like ruins that whole thing. Like he's even talked about like getting rid of voting. He said that before, like you don't have to vote again if you vote for me. Like whether you see it or not, it's not hyperbole to say, hey, it's not an exaggeration to say, hey, he wants to be a dictator. He wants to just be in charge and do whatever he wants. And this is what all the people that have worked with him have come out and say.
Women who voted for Trump, I have a question. Why? And this is not a fight. Try not to get defensive. I genuinely am trying to understand why you made that decision. Like, as a woman, does it not concern you that he appointed judges who've rolled back reproductive rights, threatening our access to safe healthcare? Like, as a woman, does it not concern you that he's been accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women? As a woman with a daughter, does it not worry you that his administration is making it harder for women to report sexual assault on college campuses? As a woman who voted for Trump, does it not like give you the ick a little that he's made countless sexist remarks that undermine women in leadership in the workforce? I'm trying so hard to just stay curious, not furious, and understand your decision. And I'm struggling, dude. As a woman especially.
Well, it's 2 days after the election, and yesterday I had a really hard time trying to pinpoint why I don't think I've ever felt more heartbroken and hopeless as I do now. There have been a lot of times in my life when I've been disappointed, when I've been depressed, when I've been angry, but I have never felt these things to the depth that I felt yesterday. But I gave it some thought, and I think I figured it out. The reason I'm so heartbroken, destroyed, and absolutely disgusted with the results of this election is that it invalidates everything I have ever been taught about how I should live my life and everything I've tried to teach my kids. So it's an absolute betrayal to realize at 57 years of age that when it comes really down to it, over half of this country really doesn't value the notions of being kind, being generous, loving your neighbor, being accepting, having empathy, showing understanding, being truthful, being ethical in business, being sensible and level-headed, not being a bully, not being selfish, and not being a total asshole. And because I've been taught these things my entire life, it's really easy for me to see that Donald Trump is a vile and despicable human being. He exhibits everything that I have been taught to set my sights against in order to be a good, functioning member of society. But now, over half our country supports this person and believes that he's the one who's going to make America great. Well, hey, here's a secret. Someone who has worked so hard at sowing discord is never going to do anything to unite us. That's his big lie, because he doesn't benefit from Americans coming together. He and all the Tucker Carlsons and Alex Jones out there, they profit from the rage that they're able to manufacture. So don't tell me it's okay if we disagree, as if this is akin to our individual preferences for wine or toilet paper. This is not a simple disagreement. This is you telling me that the values I've held dear my entire life have no meaning or place in the real world. This is you telling me that I should be shrewd, deceptive, cruel, and intolerant. This is you telling me that the type of person you really admire and look up to is a rich, entitled, narcissistic, criminally convicted grabber.
It was a simple response. They just like the economy better under Donald Trump. They're going to be in for a very, very rude awakening under Trump's economy, and here's why. We're not going to get people to even want to understand that the first 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency, people were benefiting from Obama's economic plan. I mean, the economy just does not change overnight, nor do the resulting benefits change overnight, okay? Putting that aside, what happened during Donald Trump's presidency was the pandemic. And what people, many of those people remember getting were those free checks. They got free checks, and many of them didn't have to work. And that created such a positive feeling. Who wouldn't be really feeling really good about that? And that feeling imprinted on people. It imprinted on them. But what they're doing is they're falsely connecting those free checks to Donald Trump. And what they don't realize is those free stimulus checks, that all came from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders and the progressive wing, they fought so hard for those checks to go into the American households all across the country. Bernie Sanders even stood and fought for it. He stood for 10 or 12 hours? I got to look it up. It was crazy. And a lot of those progressive Democrats are gone because when Gaza happened, the pro-Israel super PACs funded their Democratic opponents in the primaries to oust them. But they're the ones to credit for those checks. Donald Trump, after it passed in both the House and the Senate, all Donald Trump said was, I want my name on the checks. And there's that connection to those free stimulus checks.
Now, before we get to why Latinos and other ethnic groups voted for Trump. Let's see what another country thinks of the elections.
First Minister offered congratulations to the convicted felon Donald Trump on his re-election. Writing officially on behalf of the Scottish Government, he wrote that he is sure Scotland's cultural and social ties with the US will flourish during the presidency of a misogynist, a climate denier, a fraudster, a conspiracy monger, a racist, a far-right politician who tried to overturn an election result both covertly and by inciting violence. Words fail me. What social and cultural ties does the First Minister really think will benefit from a relationship with such?
We know where he stands. Okay, I really wanted to know why Latinos would vote for Trump, knowing how Trump thinks about them.
How are you a Latino and a supporter for Trump? It doesn't make sense.
How?
To me, it's the same logic if a chicken was for KFC. He doesn't like you.
I just think he's a lost leader. You know what I'm saying? Like, he leads for the people that are lost.
Just a lot of the Latinos for Trump are very much assimilated, and I think they're very blind to who they actually are.
They spend so much time making you othered that you want nothing more than to be accepted.
I'm Hispanic and I vote for Mr. Trump. We vote for Mr. Trump.
I for sure feel like some of them wouldn't even want to be called Latinos.
Yeah.
Like, they generally want to be known as like they're American.
But I don't get how you can ever support somebody who doesn't even think you should exist.
How lost you gotta be, man?
First of all, Hispanics love Trump. They do.
Donald Trump didn't just rely on the vote that got him into the White House the first time. He expanded it, and a big push came from Latino men. NBC News exit polls show 55% of Latino men backed Trump nationwide. In 2020, it was just 36%. There are some striking examples, like Starr County, Texas, the most Hispanic county in the country. Trump won there by nearly 16 points. It had gone Democratic every election since 1892. In Pennsylvania, Latinos helped deliver the critical battleground state in multiple counties.
What the economy was versus the last 4 years, they say it's a night and day difference for them. So the values of the Hispanic population, they're more similar to what the values are of the Republican Party.
The mandate from Latino voters is clear. Focus on the economy, focus on bringing down prices, focus on inflation.
And with a growing population, there is growing influence on the country's politics.
Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. These Latinos, they love making babies too, just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country. You know, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say out loud what a lot of Republican politicians and conservative Americans are saying privately amongst each other. Donald Trump did a phenomenal job of convincing the majority of Latino voters in the United States to cast their ballots for him. Why? Because for many to most Latinos, immigration is as an important issue for them as it is for non-Latinos. Meaning, publicly, the party line is, we're not against immigration, we just want it to be done legally. BS. Mentiras. If you don't know this, I am Cuban. Both of my parents were born in Cuba. I was raised in Miami, which is a minority-dominated city and county. Latinos make up the majority of Dade County, of Miami. Most of my family are Republicans. So what I'm about to share with you is speaking from my own personal experience. This is my truth. Most of my family members don't even want more legal immigration from Latinos. They want less. For example, Venezuela and the sad situation there. So many of my Cuban family members and former classmates, Cuban friends of mine from Miami. Miami's got too many Venezuelans already. We don't want any more Venezuelans. Many to most Latinos and Republicans are just against immigration, legally, and especially illegally. But they don't want to say that publicly. And I think that explains a lot why Trump decisively won with Latino voters.
So I just asked a Latino at my job, why you vote for Trump? This is what he told me out of his mouth. This is what he told me. He say he voted for Trump because he know Trump hate them. This is what he said. He know Trump hate them. So they vote for Trump to make the Republicans feel like they with them so they could stop attacking them. This is what he told me. They only voted for Trump because Trump and them hate them so much. They wanted to show them they on the side of Republicans so they could leave them alone. I say, so you went and voted for Trump because you were scared you might get deported? And he said, yeah.
Good afternoon, mi gente. And this is for Latinos, especially those ones that voted for Trump. And I know today you're feeling really proud of yourself and you're standing 10 toes down and you're just like, my president? Yeah. But as of 15 hours ago, he talked about, again, the mass deportation. So we all know that is the first thing on his agenda because he's going to have to please his base. The other thing that's happening is that he's got someone in his corner called Stephen Miller, and he is a white supremacist that has a really big hard-on for Latinos. So we already know, based on what Trump has said, if anybody needs a sound bite, I got you. Right? But Trump already said that the way he's going to do this, it's with the Alien Enemies Act, right? But let's talk about a couple of things in order, right? I know that the first thing he's going to go for is undocumented immigrants. And I know you think it's going to stop there. But his party is already talking about denaturalization of citizenship. Now you might ask, because I'm pretty sure you're going to ask, well, Brenda, what is that? And that's when they revoke the citizenship of people that are already citizens from countries that they deem enemies. So I know for a lot of my Latinos, I got this in the comments a lot as I was, advocating for Kamala Harris, is that I'm a citizen and I obey the law and therefore they're not coming for me. Well, under USC, look it up, 1451, it says the president has the right to take away your citizenship, especially those that have citizenship and they weren't born here. So while your children might be safe, it is clearly they're saying that you're not. But this is what you voted for, just so that you know.
We also know that he will try to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, which would essentially give the federal government the power, the authority to deport, to detain any non-U.S. citizen that they believe is deemed from an enemy country. We know from Operation Wetback that they literally packed hundreds of people into trains, planes, ships, and literally just dumped them in Mexico. What Stephen Miller has also told us is that they are actively designing new militarized giant detention centers where they would pack all these families. And one more thing that I think is important, I think a lot of people believe that we're talking about mass deportation plans that would just sort of affect undocumented immigrants. That's not true. There are 22 million people that live in mixed status families.
So the American would be deported too. That's what Tom Homan said.
American families will be deported, will be separated. If we were morally outraged in 2018, when we saw those families being deported and separated at the border, we're about to see that at a mass scale in the interior and with American families.
Okay, let's hear from some of the Black American men why they voted for Trump.
His big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now.
This statement from former President Trump left a lot of people confused. Although black workers have been overrepresented in certain job sectors like government and home health care, black Americans occupy all rungs of employment according to the Bureau of Labor of Statistics. And while data shows the unemployment rate for black workers fell to 5.3% under Trump, it fell even lower under President Biden to a new low of 4.8%. Data also suggests that migrants aren't taking away jobs. The Bureau of Labor of Statistics found that the unemployment rate for US-born citizens remains near all-time lows, 3.8% in May. It is unlikely that the unemployment rate for native workers would be so low if they were being overtaken by immigrants.
You know, one group that really sealed the deal for the former president, and this was an unexpected group, black men and Hispanic men. Donald Trump increased his margin significantly among both groups. In Pennsylvania, he got around 25% of black men. In North Carolina, 21% of black men. Republicans haven't seen numbers like that since Richard Nixon. The Republican Party has effectively become a working class, multiracial party. George W. Bush wasn't able to accomplish this. Mitt Romney couldn't do it. John McCain couldn't do it. And yet Donald Trump was able to do something that no one expected him to be able to do. It's unprecedented. It's going to make a difference. And the question becomes, as this gender and racial realignment continues, what does that mean for the future of the Republican Party, but also for the future of the Democratic Party?
I voted very early and I voted for Trump.
Tell me why.
Trump just connects with me. It's his authenticity. I know Trump. I don't know who Kamala Harris is because she only plays the middle ground and she doesn't take a stance on anything.
You said to me earlier that you voted for Donald Trump to send a message to the Democratic Party and to Kamala Harris. What message were you trying to send?
Men's interest. Men have been alienated by woke culture, and we're sending a message saying enough is enough. I don't know if that means we'll win, but we're hoping for it.
I think a lot of people are turned off by being told who they should vote for based on skin color. I'm a black man. I'm in a black Greek-led organization. I went to a historically black college or university. None of that should matter with regards to how I make a decision on who I'm going to vote for.
Why do you think she's not the one?
I didn't think she was the one in 2020. I didn't find her to be a formidable enough candidate to get the base out to support her. They overlook class in the same way that Hillary Clinton 8 years ago took the black vote as well as the unionized community for granted. When you think that you have something just based on the history, and you don't speak to them, you don't come into the community, then the community is turned. There's going to come a point where the community just gets sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Donald Trump won, and this is what America wanted. They wanted someone they believed to be a strong man. They wanted someone they believe was better on the economy. Whether any of those things are true or not, and much of it's not, this is what America wanted. This is what people voted for. Most of America voted for MAGAism. They voted for the sexism. They voted for the racism. They voted for the convicted criminal. They voted for someone who wants to get rid of health care. They voted for someone who wants to get rid of the Department of Education. But those are all true, but that's what he wanted, and that's what they wanted. So look, this is where we are. America is honestly MAGA country now, and people have to get used to it. Doesn't mean that they can't fight against it. Doesn't mean that it's over. 4 more years in the White House, but that's not the end of the world. Let's hope so.
We know Kamala Harris is both black and Indian, so she's of mixed heritage, which is very common in the United States. But for some reason, Trump tried to make it weird, as if somehow she chose to be black one day and Indian the other, as if you can't be both. Anyway, I was really curious as to how Indians voted.
Inspiring.
Gutsy. Strong.
Simply awesome.
That's how this group of Democratic volunteers at Mona Singh's house in Cary described Kamala Harris, saying knocked doors in Wake County for Biden in 2020 and was even there to greet him at RDU after the debate. She respects his decision to step down, but says since Kamala Harris took the top of the ticket, enthusiasm has skyrocketed.
You will not believe how many volunteers are actually coming to us and telling us that they want to be knocking on doors with us.
Motivated by issues from healthcare.
They should have free healthcare in this country. We definitely can. People are suffering.
To women's rights.
You know, gut-wrenching to think that my daughters could grow up with fewer rights than my mother had in the 1960s in India.
For Indian Americans in the Triangle, it's also a chance for representation.
Her mother came here to study. So that kind of reflects on us, right? Because we all came here to study. We are immigrants. We value education.
But despite growing in population, until recently, that hasn't always translated into political power.
When you first come to a nation, I can just speak as a son of immigrants, you kind of just say, well, I'm going to focus on my career, raise my family, get them educated, and hope they get good jobs. And it's just really never thought of, well, don't get into politics, right?
But that's changing. This year, there are 236,000 eligible AAPI voters in North Carolina. That's 3 times the margin that decided the last presidential race in our state. Now, with a chance to make history.
Lots of little girls are going to be looking up to her. Make them proud.
But then I also found out that a lot of Indians in India are actually Trump supporters, and also a lot of Indians in America also voted for Trump because a lot of them believe that because he's an entrepreneur and a business person and they run businesses, that somehow he has their best interest. Also, keep in mind, in most parts of India, there are gender stereotypes where men are typically expected to be the breadwinners, decision makers, protectors, leaders, while the women are confined to roles of caregivers and homemakers. So with these cultural norms and stereotypes, it's really hard for them to see Kamala Harris as the leader. A lot of people said that they felt Donald Trump was the best leader because he was a man.
Again. Vote for Donald Trump. Make world great again. Vote for Donald Trump. Make world great.
Accomplished here, no doubt, is that we made Kamala Indian again.
No! Candice, you must be new here. I love you, but the Indian community will not be accepting Kamala again.
Can I say this? I really am not trying to make a joke of things. But you see how Kamala, you see how she left? Very demure. Very mindful. She didn't throw a tantrum. She didn't get crazy. She didn't, prove to these people that she's, she kept it very demure. And I feel like that is so inspiring. The way she walked off that stage and she held her head up high and I want to cry.
I came home the day I met Trump and I gave my son a MAGA hat and I said, I guess we're there. And he said, ew. His first words to me were, ew. I said, but Baba, he said he's going to stop the war. And he said, okay, that's it. Give me that hat. We're voting for Trump. And that's the sentiment, not just of an 8-year-old, but of an entire community. If you're going to stop the war, even if I don't like you, I'm on your team.
What about Asian Americans? I recently learned that most Asians vote Democrat, except Vietnamese people typically vote Republican, but maybe everything is changing now.
Do you think Asians should support Donald Trump?
I think Asians tend to be more socially conservative.
Mm-hmm.
I think family values are more conservative.
Mm.
They tend to be more fiscally conservative.
Mm.
And the idea that a huge population of Asians are extremely liberal in their voting is weird to me.
Oh, why?
It doesn't make sense. Why do you vote liberal, but everything else about you is conservative?
Do you think it's the ideals of core liberalism of leave me alone, let me live my life? Do you think that's the overriding narrative that has Asians who vote liberal, or is it something else?
I think it's because the news is liberal, the Asian news is liberal, and and even the churches are becoming very liberal in their political ideology.
You're not wrong.
So their whole world is saying, hey, the right, they're pretty racist. And they're like, yeah, they hate me. You're right. And you vote for the left. But if they really sat down, like, well, do we like this trans stuff? No. Okay. Do we like the government telling us what to do? No. Do we like being censored? No. Do we like paying more taxes? No. Then you're like, wait a second. Maybe, but no, but they told me that.
Yeah, the talking heads told
but they told me they're racist, so yeah, I'm going to vote this way. It's a weird thing. I think more and more Asians are waking up. I think there's a larger community of people going, yeah, do you know what? Racism, it's not really the biggest problem in our lives.
Truly.
And slowly, one by one by one. But I think it takes time.
I always get confused when someone say they vote for Trump for the economy, because if you look at the top 10 states with the highest GDP per capita, most of them are blue. Well, you might say GDP per capita is not a good indicator of quality of life. You should look at the average income. Well, if you look at the average income per capita, then more states out of the top 10 are blue. So, am I missing something? Can someone who voted for Trump enlighten me a little bit?
Why Chinese Americans support Trump? All right. So the reason is the Democrat administration, Biden administration, lead this country towards socialism and eventually towards communist dictatorship. We came from China. We know this is the way. This is not like people here don't understand what is a communist is. We know communist is. What a communist is. That's why we support Trump.
This is really interesting because I'm also Chinese American myself. So I know
you haven't lived in China, I guess.
I did. I grew up in China. I grew up in China till I was 17. I'm from Shanghai. But yeah, I don't want to talk about my opinions because I'm a journalist. So I just want to hear more about your opinions. You know, as immigrants, a lot of people might say that Trump is anti-immigrant or
Trump is not anti-immigrant at all. It's just against illegal immigrant. Right. It must be lawfully, orderly. That's how the immigrant should be.
I learned that the highest number of Native American Indians reside in Arizona, and although they're scattered around the country, it's very challenging to get accurate numbers of people who identify as Native, so the polls were not always accurate when it comes to identifying them.
Tia, Trump or Harris?
Trump.
Alan, Trump or Harris?
I got Harris.
Elena, Trump or Harris?
Harris.
Miss Gallup, Indian Ceremonial Queen, Indiana King, Trump or Harris?
I am a nonpartisan political person. Thank you.
Indiana King, Trump or Harris?
Kamala Harris.
Trump or Harris?
Harris.
Trump or Harris?
Harris.
Trump or Harris?
Harris.
Next, I wanted to hear from a Palestinian American.
Do you know anyone who's voting Harris?
No. I don't know anyone voting for Trump either. I feel like I'm a Palestinian first than an American. That's what I learned from this, to be honest. I will be voting Green Party. I'll be voting for Jill Stein. I'd rather my vote, even whatever people says that these votes will be considered for a different party, because considering where swing state, I genuinely do not care. I care that my vote is a morally conscious vote, and it will be going for Jill Stein. And I'm done catering to a two-party system. I think the U.S. is secondary to Israel. I do blame the Democratic Party. I do blame that these people in administration, like my parents voted for Biden. A lot of Arab and Dearborn voted for Biden, and what did we get? We get promised this and that, and we got a genocide. We got this continuous support of mass murder of children, women, elder. The people who voted for you, these people are directly impacted, and they genuinely do not care. And when they play this game where they send people to Michigan to tell us, hey, if you vote for us, we're gonna continue doing that. I'm not playing this game anymore. My vote does not matter. People like me and people who look like me, dress like me, act like me, I genuinely believe the United States of America does not care about what my people think. I feel like change shouldn't be just done through elections. As an American, my power isn't just to vote. My power is in my freedom of speech, my freedom of assembly.
Because Arab Americans and Muslim Americans voted for Donald Trump or stayed out of the election by voting for Jill Stein, and in general because other races voted so much less for Kamala Harris than black women and black men, who were at above 90% and above 80% respectively, I have seen so many people in the comments of so many videos saying, good luck, fight for Palestine on your own, I'm going to Starbucks, I'm done fighting for this movement, and win it without us. Don't ask black men and women to get involved in this anymore. It's your problem. You didn't stand up for us. We're not going to stand up for you. To be clear, I think this is going to be the biggest loss to the pro-Palestinian movement after the fact that y'all just elected Donald Trump, a man who says that he will happily let Israel completely roll over Gaza, that he wants to use, property in Gaza for a beach resort, etc., etc. Netanyahu isn't even trying to hide the fact that now he can do whatever he wants. He's not even willing to negotiate a ceasefire. And we're So when I say that the pro-Palestine movement just lost, I cannot actually tell you by how much. Because I don't think there's going to be a strong pro-Palestine movement in the US anymore, or even globally, because black men and women have always been at the forefront of that, and they are very rightfully saying, I quit, this is your problem now.
Okay, all the African immigrants come to the front of the class. Those of you that voted for Trump, explain.
I've been seeing a lot of Africans in particular citing Christianity as the reason they support Trump. So this is what I have to say to my fellow Christians. If you allowed a racist, rapist criminal to convince you that he was an actual Christian and you all felt like sheep, I can only imagine what the devil himself can convince you to do blindly, you weak-minded, feeble-brained nincompoops. How can you call yourself a Christian person and be full of such hate? Who taught you to hate like that? Not my God. If you wish to be a hateful bigot on your own volition, by all means do it. But keep my Jesus, who was hanging out with the prostitutes and outcasts of society, because he loved everybody, out of it. Out of it.
Here, because I know some African immigrants who are all the way Trump. And it's this idea of I want to be with the side that's waving the biggest flag. I want to fit in. And there is a huge element, to be honest, of anti-blackness in a lot of this. Anti-black Americanness specifically.
Now that the US elections are over, I can talk about this. And it is about Nigerians and how, for a lack of better words, sentimental it is we are. And how the S in the beginning of that sentimental actually stands for stupid. There are only 3 types of Nigerian Trump supporters. Do you know how insane it is that I can say the words Nigerian Trump supporters and it's an actual thing? And if we're being very honest, it is not that crazy considering how our own elections went. But I digress. I'm going to be explaining to you the 3 different types of Trump supporters that we have in this country and how their lack of direction is going to be the doom of us in our own country. The first one are women-hating people. And I know you hear women-hating people and you think men. No, they are also women-hating women. These people only supported that man because he is a man and because Kamala Harris is a woman. Nothing more, nothing less. 2. Homophobes. This one is honestly a no-brainer. We know so many Nigerian people don't even know what Trump is about. They just know he does not like queer people. And that is enough reason for them to want to see him in that position. 3. Stupid, extremely stupid Christians. All these 3 different groups of Trump supporters do not know his policy. They do not know his plan. Some of them do not even know who his vice president is. A lot of Trump supporters in Nigeria only support him because they share the same hate. Because he has publicly made it known that they share the same hate. And to them, that is enough to support somebody. Because out of everything that he has said, which is honestly a bunch of nothing, the main thing that he could pick out is that he wants to control the lives of people, especially the area of those people's lives that do not matter to him. And these people are very dangerous because these are the same people that will come out with their Nigerian voters card and vote. And we expect people like this to make the right decisions during an election. We expect people like this to have the brain capacity to think beyond what it is that they hold as personal beliefs. We expect people like this to look out for the benefit of the country, of their own country. Aren't we all just jokers?
I'm here at work and I just got done crying. I found out that my dad today, who's an immigrant by the way, he voted for Donald Trump. I feel betrayed and I feel hurt and I feel confused that a man who has 2 black daughters couldn't see a black woman running this country. And he voted for a man who said day 1, mass deportation. You're out of here. And he still voted for him. And I told him that when he gets his citizenship revoked, because they have the Supreme Court, they have the Senate, they have the House of Representatives, Pennsylvania is now red. When you get your citizenship revoked, I will not be visiting you in your shithole country. I'm embarrassed. And I'm watching all these Latina TikTokers and how they feel being children of immigrants. And I am in the same position. And I'm like, I'm also a child of immigrants, of an immigrant. My mom is from this country. But you have 2 black daughters and you didn't think that one could run this country. Y'all, people who created black women don't believe in us. And that is something that I'm having a very hard time grasping that concept. And so you guys keep me in your prayers and thoughts, and yeah, hopefully I stop crying by the time these kids come back in here.
I hope if you're a Republican still watching that you have some empathy or at least better understanding of a different point of view. You don't have to agree. And I hope if you are a Democrat that you have some comfort in knowing that there are people who feel like you do and that it's okay to have these feelings. They are valid. We all love this country and we are just scared. On a personal note, as a black woman who happens to be a naturalized citizen and has lived here for over 30 years, married with kids that were born in the United States. I love this country and I just cannot see voting for Trump ever because his values do not align with mine and it has nothing to do with being a Republican. I wouldn't vote for him even if he was a Democrat, honestly. At this point, the only thing I can say is if Trump did win fair and square, then we have to accept him as our next president of the United States. It is what it is. Now, I will say, I don't know if it is wishful thinking that there's a small part of me that doesn't think this is over. I have added the clip of Kamala Harris walking away and part of her speech. That does not look or sound like a defeated woman. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Watch to the end. And thank you so much for listening this long. You are the real MVP.
The sweeping and decisive shift toward Trump was part of a global trend. He didn't win because Harris emphasized the wrong issues or targeted the wrong kinds of voters or made mistakes in the media. Over the past couple of years, voters around the world turned on the party in power, no matter its ideology or history, and decided that they wanted change. Incumbent parties on the right and left lost in the UK, Botswana, India, North Macedonia, South Korea, South Africa, Poland, and Argentina. The major theory is that this had to do with the post-COVID economy that caused inflation around the world. People were longing for the prices before the pandemic, and that was one of the biggest issues for voters going into this race. 3 exit polls found that at least 70% of Americans were dissatisfied with the country's direction, and they took it out on the current ruling party. Trump represented change for many voters because Democrats have been in power for the last 4 years as inflation has gripped the globe. The data suggests that if Trump had been in power, voters would have moved left. So instead of blaming each other, we can see Trump's decisive win in a global context. People were dissatisfied with their material conditions and assigned blame to the people who hold power, despite the US handling inflation much better than most large countries.
Hug a black woman today. Don't hug me. I wish you would come over here after the night I've had and hug me. If you really love a black woman, you'll Cash App one. Hello? Hug a black woman on today? And all these posts are like, I'm so sorry, black women. I'm so sorry, black women. I'm so sorry, black. Why do you feel sorry for black women? Why do you feel sorry for me? Because we dreamed, because we hoped, because we were intellectually prepared, emotionally ready, because we were ambitious, because we collectively put our morals and values on the line and voted. Even if we didn't agree 100% with the foreign or domestic policy, we always do what needs to be done. But you feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for us. I feel extraordinarily and extremely proud. Extraordinarily and extremely proud. I feel sorry for you because you thought that you were different than us. You thought that this country would politically protect you because you thought that the policies that we have been facing generation after generation somehow would escape you. But you're about to find out how abundantly untrue that is going to be for you and yours.
We got to get the congressmen elected and we got to get the senators elected, because we can take the Senate pretty easily. And I think with our little secret, we're going to do really well with the House, right? Our little secret is having a big impact. He and I have a secret. We'll tell you what it is when the race is over.
I checked the status of my ballot and it says I never voted, which is really weird because I definitely voted. There is clearly election interference going on, and I wasn't going to talk about it because I have a big platform and I didn't want to like freak people out or get people like, oh, the government's like, I don't want to do that. But this has happened to a lot of people, and I know I'm not crazy because it happened to me too, so I'm just going to say it. Something weird's been happening. Donald Trump won the popular vote and said nothing. He won every swing state and said nothing. Didn't brag about it. But it's not just that. Right before the election, he was out loud saying like, we don't need your vote. I don't need you to vote for me. We don't need your vote. We've got a little secret. And on top of that, you've got Donald Trump and Elon Musk both saying before the election, yeah, if Kamala wins, we are like, we're going to prison. And he's also done this before. Like, he did this the last 2 elections. There have been people arrested for election interference on behalf of Trump the last 2 elections. Fool me once, right? Fool me twice, right? So yeah, if you voted for Kamala, go check. Even if you didn't vote for Kamala, go check the status of your ballot. Go to vote.org, hit the 3 dots at the top, and then go to track your ballot.
You're telling me that the activist since her teens, the lawyer, the prosecutor, the attorney general, the currently sitting vice president, worked in all 3 branches of government, is going to just concede easily and not go down without a fight?
To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed. But please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power. And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves.
We know that walk. That is not the walk of a defeated woman. Anyway, folk, thank you so much for watching this far, and I really appreciate you. Don't forget to leave me your comments. I look forward to reading them. Bye!